Hello and welcome to this Curious About live session brought to you by Glasgow Science Centre. My name is Patrick and our guest for this session is Jasper Hughes, who is a Learning and Community Officer at Highland Wildlife Park. Today, Jasper is going to be talking to us about the amazing Arctic fox and what we can do to protect wildlife in Scotland and around the world. There's going to be plenty of time for Jasper to answer any questions you might have, so please write those in the chat box on YouTube and we will try and get through as many of those as we possibly can. Hello, Jasper, and thank you for joining us for this session.
Hey, Patrick, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Oh, not so bad. It's a little bit windy up here and raining, but, you know, that's the Highlands for you.
So whereabouts in the Highland Wildlife Park are you?
Yeah, well, I'm up at the Highland Wildlife Park, which is just south of Aviemore. So we're within the Cairngorms National Park, and so we're a park within a park.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you. I believe you've got some slides and a talk for us, so I'll hand over to you and I'll see you on the other side.
Excellent. Thank you. Right then, guys. So, like I say, welcome. I'm going to be, like I say, talking about the Arctic foxes. So we've got a number of Arctic foxes here at the park. So let's start. Now, my slides don't seem to be clicking on. So let's try. Oh, there we go. A little bit of technical issues there. Always good. So what is RZSS? So RZSS is the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland. They own both Edinburgh Zoo and the Highland Wildlife Park. So like I say, I'm based up at the Highland Wildlife Park. And here we actually specialize in cold adapted species. So if you were to ever come to the park, you would see animals from mountainous areas like the Himalayas or the Andes, or even native species from the Highlands of Scotland as well. So we also have animals from the high Arctic. So lots of animals like polar bears, reindeer, wolverine, and our special animal today is the Arctic fox. So Arctic fox, Vulpes lagopus, that's their scientific name. What a bit of a mouthful that is. So now there are actually 12 different species of foxes, and they are found lots of different areas around the world, from warm tropical areas all the way up to the high Arctic. So our Arctic foxes, they are very distinctive. So you can see they've got this beautiful thick fur, which keeps them nice and toasty warm. So Arctic foxes don't start shivering until -40, -50. So these animals are absolutely perfectly well adapted to living in this cold environment. They've even got furry paws as well, which keeps them nice and toasty warm. So Arctic foxes are found in this orange area that you can see on the map. So they're actually found in a variety of different countries, from Alaska, Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, and Sweden as well. In fact, we used to have Arctic foxes here in Scotland. Not recently, though. This was thousands and thousands of years ago during the last ice age. So they used to have Arctic foxes and even polar bears, and they found the remains of them in a place called Inchterdampf in just northeast of Ullapool. So the Arctic foxes, they actually live as a family. We've got mum and dad, and that is Jack and Sarah, and as you can see, they got on really well. They've had babies, yay! So they haven't had any babies this year. But they have had babies in the past, and this is what they look like. Very cute, very dark. They're actually born underground in their den or set. And mum would be feeding them milk to start with. And as they start to open their eyes and start to move around, they can then start to eat meat. So this was our family that we had. So these are, well, she had 5 brothers and sisters. So, and the youngest one is Toots. We still have Toots, and she was the runt of the litter. She was the tiniest one. So all her other brothers and sisters have now gone off to other collections. So they're born in the spring, and then they leave home in the autumn. So they're only with the family unit for a very short period of time. But this is enough for them to learn how to live, survive, and become a fox and be able to look after themselves. So like I say, you would have the mum and dad. Mum and dad would be feeding the babies. They would, mum would be giving them milk. Dad would be going out feeding mum as well as the babies once they can start to eat meat. So that is say they have this short family group, and sometimes it can be dad, and he may have multiple families. So, which is really good for them, particularly if they've got lots of food. So when they go hunting, they love to eat lots of different things. Arctic foxes are what we call omnivores. And omnivores eat both meat and veg. So you can see they eat berries and insects, carrion. I wonder if anybody knows what carrion is. Carrion is dead animals. So they're scavengers as well. So they're very, very adaptable. Marine invertebrates, there's a big word. Invertebrates means it's got a backbone. Oh, sorry, it hasn't got a backbone. So these guys will find anything that they can find on the beach. Seabirds as well, they will scavenge from sea cliffs as well as fish. Now they don't go swimming for fish, but if they find fish that they will find on the beach, they will also eat them as well. So this is a little video that we have of our Arctic foxes. So what we'll do, we'll just play that video and you'll be able to see this is how we give them enrichment. Now, enrichment is things for the animals to play with. So here you can see there's a sock. That was a smelly sock from one of the keepers. They only had one sock left. So we can hang it on there. We can put stuff inside it. Oh, we got a squash. We got a ball. So we can put fruit. We can put veg. And this is just like a mobile that you would have if you're a baby, but they would spin around. It's difficult for them to catch with their teeth. So this is really good for them. So, and it keeps them both physically and mentally interested in what's going on, because in captivity, they can't go hunting for food. So this helps us mimic their hunting ability or just their curiosity to find things. Fantastic. Right then, what we'll do, we'll go on to the next slide. Here we go. So now predators, they do have predators. So the kind of predators that might eat an Arctic fox could be these guys, polar bears. These are actually pictures of our polar bears here at the park. Now with an Arctic fox, they're quite small, they're quite agile, so they are not going to be easy for them to catch. Don't get me wrong. Polar bears are very fast. They're very agile for their size. But like I say, they do have this relationship. So the polar bear will hunt the seals, and any leftovers that he has, he allows the fox to come and get them. But if he starts to get a little bit annoying, sometimes he may chase them off. Other animals that might be interested in Arctic foxes, wolves. Yeah. So there can be a little bit of competition. So wolves are canids, so they belong to the dog family, same as the Arctic fox. But like I say, they may try and scavenge from the same food as well. Eagles. Now, eagles, golden eagles, aren't generally going to take out an adult fox. So, but they could go for the kits if they're just coming out of the den and you've got an eagle-eyed, a golden eagle around. It may take that opportunity because it wouldn't know what an eagle was until the last minute. Grizzly bears. So polar bears, grizzly bears, they can overlap in some of the southern areas, particularly in North America. So bears, again, these guys are omnivores. The brown bears are omnivores, and they will probably go for some of the same source of food as the Arctic foxes. So like I say, the Arctic foxes need to be very much aware of who is around them, as well as humans as well. We are one of the biggest problems for Arctic foxes. So, and we'll talk about some more of the threats that we are causing for these little guys. So, like I say, these animals are perfectly well adapted for survival in the high Arctic. It gets incredibly cold, far colder than it does here in Scotland. So they've got this beautiful thick fur. They have one of the most densest furs that you can have on an animal. And if you ever touch an Arctic fox, I've been lucky enough to be able to touch an Arctic fox. So here at the park, they are it's like putting your hand into a cloud. It's that soft and, oh, it's beautiful. So they have these long, fluffy tails. Some people seem to think that they use their fluffy tail as a scarf to go around their face. Sometimes you may see pictures of this, and this can keep them nice and toasty warm as well. As I mentioned before, nice big hairy feet. This insulates them, keeps them toasty warm, but it also can give them grip on the ice as well. One of the amazing things that Arctic foxes do is that they change color. So this picture that you can see here is the summer coat. The white coat is the winter coat. Now, you wouldn't wear your winter woolies in the middle of summer, neither does the Arctic fox. So they shed their fur, and this is caused by daylight length. So everybody thinks it's all to do with temperature, but no, it's all to do with the length of the day. So in their body, they would have a hormone, and this would say the days are getting longer. So that means it's going to be getting warmer. Let's get rid of that nice thick coat. And they shed it. They do look quite scruffy when they shed their coat. And they then have this lighter, darker coat. By being darker, it also keeps them warm because it absorbs the heat. And for the summer, because it still can get quite cold in the Arctic in the summer. And then when the days start getting shorter, they release this hormone in their body that says days are getting shorter. Grow a nice thick coat so you can stay nice and toasty warm. So they've got these fantastic little small ears. In fact, Arctic foxes, if you compare it to a red fox, which is the fox that we have here in the UK, they're much smaller. They're much more compact so that they can stay warm. So you don't want to have a big surface area because that allows you to get cold. So you've got a nice small surface area, a small surface area so they can stay warm, and that thick fur coat as well. Like I say, already mentioned the compact body, absolutely perfect. If you had long ears or a big nose, it would get cold. You'd have to pump the blood to the end of it, or end of your ears, and you'd get frostbite. So not good at all. So this is why the Arctic foxes have evolved with small, squat bodies. So mentioned the ears, the muzzle, and the legs, keeping themselves nice and toasty warm. They can also make dens as well. So if the weather gets really bad, they'll dig a hole in the snow, in the ice, and they can sit out the worst of the weather so that they can stay alive as best as they can. So like I say, very, very well adapted to living in the high Arctic. So now, I was lucky enough to go into the Arctic fox enclosure. So what we're going to do, we're just going to play this video. I went in with Robbie, one of our keepers, and he was feeding the animals. But hopefully you get to see what their enclosure looks like. Okay, let's play that video. So at the moment, we're just going into the Arctic fox enclosure. And these guys are absolutely everywhere. So we're with Robbie. This is Robbie, one of our very experienced keepers. And what food have you got, Robbie?
I've got rats and there's a bit of apple there as well.
Rats and a bit of apple. Ooh. Now, it's not something you would normally think about, that the Arctic foxes would have apple, but they are omnivores, aren't they, Robbie? So these guys will eat pretty much everything and anything that they can get hold of. So in this enclosure we've got, is it just 3, Robbie? Yep.
Just 3,
And they're called Jack, Sarah and...
Yeah, Jack, Sarah and Toots.
Toots.
Toots is the wee one there.
Oh, is that the one in the middle? Excellent. So, excellent, lovely. She's making sure nobody steals her food.
Yeah, the circle, so that they almost stay, when they get their food, the circle, so that they're almost got their back on them, so they turn all the time.
Ah, right.
You think they've never been fed everything you get. Typical right there.
So this is quite a large enclosure that we've got here for the foxes. So I'll just pan around. Beautiful crisp morning here at the park. And we also have this climbing frame that the Arctic foxes can go onto. This is a place where they can just sit and lounge, sit in the sun, or just get up somewhere high to have a look at what's going on. So whereabouts are their dens, Robbie?
Dens, we do have boxes for them so that they can get inside, but they've got holes. You can see there's holes in the ground. They dig dens down here, and even we can't get into them. They're that deep.
Oh,
But
wow.
lucky enough, they're not near the fences because there's concrete all the way around the fence, almost a metre deep, so they can't dig out there. And yeah, there's dens under the ground there. And if the female is to have cubs, if she's to have her young, she'll go in under the ground to have the young in the holes.
Right.
And there's a hole from here which goes right out at the other side of that barrel. There's also a hole in here, that's one of their favourite ones. And if we want to catch them up, if we have to, for dozing them or anything, we have to block these holes so that we catch them up, or we have to catch them up in the crates that are in there.
Fantastic. So lots of fantastic places for them to hide. And on this day, what was about -5 today, Robbie, here at the park?
Yeah, about -4 or 5, yeah.
So these guys, they don't mind the cold at all.
No, it doesn't bother them. It's a warm day probably for them.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
with that nice thick coat of theirs.
Yeah, they enjoy it. They seem to enjoy the
Absolutely.
scavenging round, just
And they're
in case there's
really-
anything left.
They're really not bothered with us in here at all, are they?
No, they're not bothered. And if we were to come in here and we come in with the water container, if we don't take the top in, if we were to drop the top or leave the top, one of the foxes will be away with it. They watch what you're doing, and then it's a chase around until you can actually catch the fox, or until it drops it. So it could cost you another 5 minutes by the time you catch it up.
Wow. Little tricksters. Well, Robbie, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for showing us your animals that you're looking after. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Brilliant. So like I say, we played that video. Oh, sorry, I got that video a couple of days ago. Like I say, it was really quite cold that day, but it didn't bother them in the slightest. So let's see. So like I say, we got the 3 Arctic foxes at the park. We got Jack and Sarah. So Jack was actually born in 2022, and he also came to the park when at their natural dispersal age. So he was only a youngster when he arrived here. And Sarah, she is a little bit older. She was actually born in 2019. And their baby, well, their group of babies, they had about 5 at the time. And they've all gone off to other collections. And like I say, we're just left with Toots, because Toots was the littlest. She was the little runt of the litter. And we were a little bit concerned about her going away. So that's why we kept her, which is brilliant, because it's lovely having her. So Arctic foxes, unfortunately, are facing threats in the wild. So globally, their IUCN status, their International Union of Conservation of Nature, say that they are at least concerned. But in some areas, they have been hunted to extinction. So they've been hunted because of their fur. But one of the biggest threats that Arctic foxes are facing globally is climate change. So climate change is a real big problem. So hopefully you guys reduce, reuse, recycle. Hopefully that you are green people and you are looking after the world locally where you live, but also you can also think about it on a global perspective as well. So like I said, they're over hunting. What are they being hunted for? Well, it is for their skin. Unfortunately, some people historically have wanted to wear their Arctic fox fur for fashion. Now, I'm not opposed to people wearing Arctic foxes for fashion, as long as they are native people, but I am opposed to people wearing Arctic foxes for fashion. So it doesn't look good. So people living in Paris or Milan, they don't need to wear Arctic fox fur because it's too warm. But if you are a native, if you're an Inuit, or if you're a Sami, or if you are a Net person, which live in northern Russia, then they need to have the fur and they will wear it, and it is sustainably used, and it is also passed on through generations as well. So like I say, native people is part of their culture, but it's not part of our culture, and I don't think we need to wear Arctic fox fur at all. So invasive species. Well, now there's a term, invasive. What does that actually mean? Well, it means that new animals are coming in, sometimes naturally, sometimes they've been introduced by people. But the big problem that Arctic foxes are facing is competition from red foxes. Due to climate change, the red fox is now moving further and further north, and they're overlapping the territories of both the Arctic fox and the red fox. It's the same thing for the brown bear and the polar bear. They're starting to overlap. But unfortunately, the red fox is bigger than the Arctic fox, and these guys tend to come off worst if they come and meet together if they're scavenging. So yeah, not great at all. And like I say, the other problem is loss of their food, their prey species. So they mainly feed on I've forgotten the name. Lemmings, that's the word. Lemmings. So their prey is sometimes declining as well locally, but also due to climate change as well. And this has a knock-on effect upon the Arctic foxes. So these guys are finding it harder and harder to survive in the wild. So what can you do to help look after the Arctic foxes? Well, we can support, or you can support, animal conservation organizations like ourselves. So we help to educate people and hopefully change people's perception or beliefs in what is happening with regards to climate change. We can make sure that we can reduce, reuse, recycle. I'm doing it. My kids are doing it. So hopefully you guys are doing it as well. We can reduce our carbon footprint. So if you can cycle to school, if you can walk to school, always better than going in a car. Yes, it might be quicker, it might be easier in a car, but think of the carbon footprint that you're leaving by taking that short journey, whereas you could walk, you could get exercise, you can breathe in that fresh air, and it's much better for you and also for the planet as well. We can support renewable energy, wind, wave, geothermal, hydroelectric. So these are all renewable energies, and we need to be moving away from those carbon-based fuels like coal, oil, and gas, and also peat. Some people still use peat. So we need to learn more about the Arctic animals, and hopefully we can all make that difference. No matter how small your contribution is, it is all really, really important to help look after the planet and also the Arctic animals. So by supporting conservation organizations, you can also support wild animal research. So this is actually studying the animals in the wild, finding out the problems that they're facing. Hopefully we can alleviate those problems, but making sure that we look after these guys. So hopefully you've been paying attention. Let's do a quick quiz on Arctic foxes. Oh, Patrick's come back. Brilliant. So, Patrick, I'm going to be asking you some of these questions. See if you can get the answer, but we'll see what people are doing online as well.
Jasper, I think on that note, we've also had quite a few questions come in, and we're running a bit short of time. So I think we might turn the tables on you and ask to quiz you instead, if that's all right.
Yeah,
First
no problem.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was such an interesting presentation and really enjoyed it. While the questions are coming in just now, I just wanted to quickly ask, would I be able to get an Arctic fox as a pet? Because they are incredibly cute to look at.
They are incredibly cute. I wouldn't recommend having any wild animal as a pet. So they can be problematic. They have got sharp teeth. They can bite, but they have quite complex requirements when you're looking after them. So that's why I wouldn't recommend. I'm sure there are people out there somewhere who have Arctic foxes as pets. Me personally, I wouldn't.
That sounds very sensible. We've got some questions that have come in for you, Jasper. The first one of which, is, do Arctic foxes hibernate?
No, they don't.
Oh,
So Arctic foxes, they're out and about, whatever the weather. They will move from area to area. So they're probably not going to be out on the thick pack ice during the hard winter. So there's no cover for them. There's not easy access for food. So they'll move more towards the coast. But these guys are out and about, just like the polar bears, all year round.
fantastic. And a reminder to everyone that you can send in your own questions using the chat box on YouTube. We've got another question that's come in for you, Jasper, which is, well, we saw some of this in the video, but how do Arctic foxes hunt for their food if they weren't in the wildlife park?
They've got a really cool way. What they do, they'll stand and they'll stop, they'll wait, and they're listening. And they've got those ears. And what they're doing is they're listening for the scurry of the lemmings. I forgot that word earlier. The lemmings underneath the snow. And they'll turn their heads. They'll be listening. And once they know where that mouse is, they'll leap up into the air. They'll then drop down with their paws and their head bursting through the snow. And then they'll try and catch the lemming in their mouth. Probably getting a whole load of snow in their mouth as well, but they'll try and grab hold of it as best as they can. And that's how they hunt. So, like I say, there's some really good footage. If you go on YouTube, you can see them, or on the BBC website. Absolutely fantastic. Just type in Arctic fox hunting.
So they're quite small, but it looks as if they're quick and they're powerful and they can jump and very nimble sort of little animals.
Oh, yeah. Like Robbie was saying, they're sneaky, they're quick, they're in, they're out. If he puts anything down, they'll grab it and they'll leg it with it. So very, very curious and very fast animals as well. So we have to block up their holes so they've got nowhere to go to.
Fantastic. We've got another question that's come in for you, Jasper, which is, about you. Why did you decide to work with animals? How did you end up at the Highland Wildlife Park?
I took like a roundabout route for getting into zoos. I actually went to agricultural college. I always wanted to work outside. I never wanted to be inside. And I thought, I like farms, I like animals. So I went, studied at agricultural college. And then I studied wild birds of prey, doing research, studying them. And then I ended up being a professional falconer. Working for the British School of Falconry at Gleneagles, and I was there for about 7 years. And then I moved to the zoo as an animal trainer, so working with the presentations department in Edinburgh Zoo. And as you can tell, I talk a lot. So my next gravitation was towards education. And I like telling people about the animals and getting them excited about the animals. And hopefully I've done that today. So that's how I got into working with animals.
You absolutely have. I wanted to ask, apart from the Arctic fox, what your favourite animal was. What is it? Still falcons, or have you got a soft spot for any other animal?
I love eagles. I love falcons. Falcons are really cool. But since coming to the wildlife park, there is an animal here. I'll describe it to you. It's got the face of a cow, but it's not a cow. It's got the bum of a bear, but it's not a bear. And it's got the body of a bison crossed with a goat. What animal could that be?
I was going to say bison, but
Nope.
then you said it was else. I don't know, Jasper.
It's a member of the goat family. In fact, it's the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the goat world. So this is a Mishmi Takin. So Mishmi Takin, yeah, they're funny looking creatures. They come from the Himalayas. We have them here at the park, and they're just so cool. I recommend people either coming up to the park or Google Mishmi Takin. They're cool. They really are. Oh, vultures. I love vultures. So bearded vulture, just like me. I'm a bearded vulture. So, they're brilliant. The bearded vultures are so cool. They eat bones.
If anyone's not been up to the Highland Wildlife Park before, I went a couple of years ago for the first time and had an amazing day out. So it's well worth visiting. And maybe you'll see Jasper up there as well. We've got time for one more question, Jasper.
Yep.
Which is, what can we do to look after wildlife in Scotland? You mentioned a few things in your talk, but I wondered if there's anything you want to say just before we go today.
Yeah, well, probably one of the most important things is just look after your local environment where you live. Make sure you put your litter away. Make sure you recycle your litter. Just make sure it's clean and tidy, but also look after local biodiversity. because there's so many local things on the ground which are just so important to the planet as well and our local area. So like plant a tree. Oh, if everybody who watches this plants at least one tree in their life, if you can plant more, even better, but plant one tree in your life, then that will go to help to save biodiversity. So biodiversity is all the bugs, the beasties, the plants, everything. So, and if you plant a tree, because trees are so important because it gives food for some animals, it gives shelter for animals, it gives a home for animals, and it's just beautiful. Oh, and it produces oxygen. We need oxygen, and trees produce oxygen. So don't forget us. So they're beneficial for everything. So like I say, plant a tree, any kind of tree, but make sure it's a native tree. It lives locally to this area. So because if you plant a tree which is not native, then animals look at it and go, oh yeah, it looks very nice, but I can't use it. So make sure you plant a native tree and have a wild area in your garden, or plant plants that are good for bees and butterflies. So that's really good because everybody forgets about the insects. I like insects. So not everybody likes insects. I like them. I think they're cool.
Fantastic. Yeah, it doesn't just help, species like the Arctic fox. It helps us. It helps prevent climate change, and it's the right thing to do. Of course it is. Jasper, I could speak to you all day, but unfortunately that is all we've got time for. I just want to say a massive thank you from myself and from Glasgow Science Centre for your coming along today. It's been amazing listening to you. It's
been lovely. Thank you very much for inviting us.
And thank you to you, our audience, for your brilliant questions. If you'd like to find out some more about wildlife and conservation, you can find out more on the Curious About website at curiousabout.glasgowsciencecentre.org. You can find lots more videos, activities, and games on the website too, and all of these events are recorded. So if you missed the start or you want to watch it again, you can find that in the live sessions section of the website. Please let us know what you thought of this live session. There is a brief survey in the chat box just now. But until next time, thank you for joining us, and goodbye.